It's good to see you, Susan.
You too. Okay,
Well, Susan, we're on 2 pages now.
2 pages. I don't know what
2 pages.
Oh, yes, great.
See?
So I guess everybody needs to mute their mics because we're getting a lot of reverberation right now. Davinia, if you want to go ahead and get started, that would be great.
Good evening, everybody. The Durban University of Technology welcomes you to the launch of My Time with Ela Gandhi by Professor Susan Easterbrooks of Georgia State University, an international partner of DUT. Before we begin, we just have a few house rules. Please ensure your cameras and your microphones are switched off for the duration of the program. We will have an opportunity for questions and comments. This will be split into 3 Q&A sessions. In each session, we will take 3 questions. When we call for questions, please use the raise hand function in the reaction section at the bottom of your screen. Once we have acknowledged your hand, please turn your microphone and camera on and pose your question or your comment. Please remember to indicate which of our speakers you are directing your comment and question to. Once you have raised your question and comment, please switch off your camera and microphone once again. The time constraints, we are only taking 3 questions per Q&A session. Should we have time at the end of the program, we might open the floor once again for further questions and comments. I will now hand over to the DUT International Education and Partnerships Director, Dr. Lavern Samuels, to do the welcome and introductions. Dr. Samuels, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Davinia. And warm greetings from Durban, South Africa. It really is very warm here. I think today was 30 degrees in Fahrenheit. That is close to 90. So it's been really warm. I greet you all, and you all are from different time zones across the world. I've seen participants from Japan. I've seen participants from Africa. I've seen participants from Europe and all across the US. So welcome and good day, good afternoon, and good evening to you. It really is my pleasure to welcome you to this event, the book launch of a book written on Ela Gandhi titled My Time with Ela Gandhi by Professor Susan Easterbrooks. This pleasure is particularly personal because I have been involved with this book and contributed in some way to the information that Professor Easterbrooks used. But I think it is even more important because of my personal association with Ela Gandhi. Today is an opportunity for us to celebrate a unique life, to celebrate a life of accomplishment, of an unsung heroine of peace, social justice, and equality, Ela Gandhi. In fact, the book we are launching today is a biography of an amazing woman. And more than that, it is the story of a friendship that arose between the author, Professor Susan Easterbrooks, and Miss Gandhi. Ela Gandhi was the Chancellor of Durban University of Technology, and so it is our particular pleasure to be involved with the launch of this book. I know that Susan has actually undertaken this as a labor of love. It really is about her friendship and how she would like to record this friendship, but also give credit to a woman that she deeply admires. With those few words, I want to say a little more about the structure of the program today. First on the agenda will be a series of speakers who will give messages, and these will be quite brief. Next, Professor Susan Easterbrooks will talk about the book, and there will be 3 short readings for you. And after each, you will be able to ask questions on these readings. And then finally, your names will be entered into a draw for one of 10 prizes, and the recipients will be announced towards the end of the hour. But it is truly a pleasure to have this really mosaic of individuals, friends and family of Ela Gandhi, friends and family of the author, friends and family of DUT, and friends and family of Georgia State University. And so I want to say a little more about the partnership between DUT and Georgia State University. Durban University of Technology and GSU in Atlanta, Georgia, have had a partnership going back more than a decade. And Professor Easterbrooks and Ela Gandhi were central to this partnership. I had started the international office at DUT about 12 years ago. And at the time, Ela Gandhi was our chancellor. And I got a call from Ela. And I think for those of you that know her, she's really a hands-on person. There is no role that she considers ceremonial. All the roles that she undertakes are working roles. And I think that also comes across very clearly in her book. So Ela called to say that she's heard about two academics from Georgia that actually had interaction with her. And they were in Durban with a group of students. They were leaving that evening, but would it be possible for me to meet them? And of course, my office doesn't say no to such opportunities. So we had the DUT driver pick them up. And within an hour, we were involved in an amazing meeting. It was a meeting, but a meeting of minds and a meeting of hearts. And that has endured for more than 12 years. I met Dr. Gwen Benson and Dr. Susan Ogletree that day, and it was the start of a wonderful friendship. It was the start of a wonderful partnership. And during that partnership, Professor Susan Easterbrooks visited DUT, and Ela Gandhi and I visited Georgia State University. Professor Easterbrooks came in to do some consulting work in the area of deafness, and she is a emeritus professor of deaf education at Georgia State University and the co-director of the Center of Literacy and Deafness. And her interests actually straddle a broad area of work around deafness and hard of hearing learners. And those of you that know her work know that she is the author of 5 textbooks which are used extensively. And during this period of working with DUT, Professor Easterbrooks engaged with Ela Gandhi and a friendship developed. And that friendship was the start of this book, My Time with Ela Gandhi. A little more about DUT's relationship with the Gandhi Development Trust. DUT has hosted the Gandhi Development Trust as one of the NGOs that we treasure having on our campus. And it is a unique relationship. And in our relationship with Georgia State University, we extended the relationship to the Gandhi Development Trust. And out of it has come a unique 3-way engagement that persists today. And part of it is covered in the book. So with those words of introduction and welcome, we will move on with the program. And it's now my pleasure to turn the program over to the author of the book, Professor Susan Easterbrooks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samuels. I truly appreciate your willingness to take the time to be involved in this process. Those of you who don't know Dr. Samuels are missing a wonderful experience. He has worked on behalf of partnerships and the international community for many, many years. And so it's no surprise to me that just last week, I learned that he and DUT had received the 2021 Global Award for Innovation and Excellence in Internationalization from the Association of International Education Administrators. And the really exciting, this is applause in American Sign Language. So the exciting thing about this is that has never been given to a university outside of the US or UK. and as before. And so it's completely and totally due to this wonderful gentleman who just spoke to you. I also want to thank Davinia Genethu for arranging all of this and handling all of the gatekeeping and housekeeping. As Dr. Samuels mentioned, I went to South Africa to do some consulting and work in some of the schools for the deaf there, and had no idea that I was going to meet this fascinating woman. I have to admit, I had little understanding of the role of Gandhi in South Africa. In fact, I thought I was going to have the African experience, and I also had the Indian experience. So that was a surprise to me. And so it just enriched my life in so many ways. Well, I had the opportunity to have a dinner at Ela's house unexpectedly. This is described in the book as well. And just walking into her flat alone was an amazing experience. The teacher of deaf children from the mountains of the state of Georgia in the US, actually saw a pair of Mohandas Gandhi's glasses. I mean, how amazing is that? And so all of my experiences while I was involved in the 3 times I went there and the 2 visits that she came over here were eye-opening, one after the next. And so at one point, I asked her, had anybody ever done her biography? And I was shocked when she told me no. And so I pestered her for a year, 2, in order to get her to write her autobiography, and ended up writing it with her and for her. And the result is this book that I have, and I show you right here. So the entire experience I had was, from start to finish, was one of surprises. You'll have to read the book to figure out how I started this journey in the mountainous regions of the Cherokee Nation in North Carolina. I started in Cherokee and ended up at the edge of the Indian Ocean. I started off at the top of an oceanside restaurant with a panoramic view, and ended up out in the African bush. And from learning about Ela's growing up on the Phoenix settlement, which was her grandfather's original ashram, and all the adorable experiences and stories she told me of her life growing up, to learning about the horrors of what she had to suffer and what all of South Africa had to suffer due to apartheid. Every time I spoke with her, I was like, wow, wow, wow. So for that entire 2-year period, I would say my eyes were wide open and my jaw was dropped. And so I felt compelled to write this book about her. I also had the opportunity to learn more about the Gandhi Development Trust and the Phoenix settlement. And so part of why I wrote this book was in order to generate some additional funds for the Gandhi Development Trust and the Phoenix settlement. And so a portion of the proceeds are going to the trust. So when you buy the book, or you talk your friends into buying the book, you're not just getting a book about Ela and a little bit about me, but you're also supporting this incredible cause that she has championed her whole life. One thing I tried to capture in the book is what I call the Gandhi Archetype. And so a question that I had all along was, what makes one person a Gandhi and another person a monster? And I learned, I came closer to understanding that. I still never will, but I came closer to understanding that through my experiences with Ela. She showed me answers that were not easy answers to accept on many levels. But she became who she was, living on the Phoenix settlement and growing up in the environment where her grandfather's principles were inherent in everything they did. And I got to watch these principles become in effect through the experiences that she had. And I think truly her life is a guidepost for a lot of what is going on in the world today. Some of the things that she talked about, as I was writing the last draft, it was like, oh my gosh, that's happening here. Oh my gosh, that's happening there, everywhere. So I think a lot of her life provides a template that people could follow to affect change in some of the areas that we're going in the wrong direction. So I've only known Ela for 10 years, and 8 of those 10 years were through email interchanges. So I've asked her cousin, Raj Mohan Gandhi, if he would say a personal word or two about her. He is Ela's cousin. He's a historian and biographer who's interested in human and democratic rights and reconciliation. His latest book, which was published in 2018, is Modern South India, a history from the 17th century to our times. And in 2009, he published A Tale of Two Revolts, India's 1857 Mutiny and the American Civil War, which has to be fascinating. In the 90s, he was a member of the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house of India's parliament. And he has been teaching at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign since 1997, where he currently serves in the College of Education. Raj, would you say a few words for us, please? Turn on your mic. There you are. Thank you.
So many thanks, Professor Easterbrooks, for giving me this chance to be with you at this important occasion and to say a word or two about my cousin Ela. Now, Kasturba and Mohandas Gandhi had 4 sons but no daughter. The 4 sons gave 15 grandchildren to their parents. 7 of these grandchildren, 4 females and 3 males, are still living, including Ela, including my brother Gopal, who's younger than me by 10 years. Until Gopal's arrival in 1945, Ela was the youngest Gandhi grandchild. She was the apple of many eyes. The flow toward Ela of loving affection seems to have given Ela a spine of steel. No one should be deceived by her gentle exterior or by the low tones in which she sometimes speaks. My cousin Ela is a tough cookie. She has needed to be strong, for she has received her share, more than her share, of life's blows. And also because the often harsh world around her has demanded a response from Ela. She has replied with courage and unflagging resolve. At times, this determination is plainly visible, as I found a few years ago while visiting Durban. Because the elevator or elevators were not working, Ela was calmly walking up and down the countless stairs of her high-rise building to and from the 17th floor, as I recall. But the real targets of Ela's determination are 1, our world's injustice, and 2, our world's disharmony. In 1993, on an earlier visit to South Africa, I saw with my own eyes how Ela's commitment and personal friendship had won the confidence of sharply divided African leaders who were separated into red and green camps. They seemed to trust Ela before they trusted one another. Ela seems to reach out for the qualities people may possess instead of merely underlining the qualities they don't have. I'm proud of my cousin Ela's fearless, unceasing trek towards justice and harmony. And I look forward to learning more about her life from Susan Easterbrooks' study. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj Mohan. I appreciate your words, and you are absolutely right. Nobody should underestimate Ela. I refer to her, to people I know, as a lioness. She's an absolute lioness, and so skilled in that calm, quiet, sweet voice of hers, in getting people from disparate positions to come together. And who talked generals, hardcore, just right after apartheid, generals in the Navy, male generals, talked them into putting bathrooms for women in their submarines. If you very quickly, to tell you a little bit about the Gandhi Development Trust and the Phoenix settlement, is Professor Nabi Jinabai. Dr. Jinabai is a research professor at Durban University of Technology and a medical doctor. He specializes in public health and epidemiological research. He has an interest in education and training in the public health arena and serves on the board of the Phoenix settlement. Dr. Jinabai, you want to just briefly tell us about the work that the foundation is doing?
Thank you very much. And thank you to Professor Susan Easterbrooks for the sterling work you're doing in promoting the book and documenting our South African history in a way, indirectly also. It's not just a biography, but also a history of the struggles in South Africa. Very briefly, I'm just going to touch on 3 points. My association with the Phoenix Settlement Trust started in the 1960s. Some of you may remember May 1968. So 67, 68, many of us were interacted with Ela and Mewa and all the other people at the Phoenix Settlement Trust. The Phoenix Settlement was a underground university for political education. So many activists and many intellectuals from the Marxist-Leninist tradition, the socialist tradition, the Gandhian tradition, and of course the democratic human rights tradition congregated there. And over many summer schools and winter schools, which are political education camps, we interacted with Ela and learned much from her. And many generations of South Africans, and I would say people in Southern Africa who passed through the Phoenix settlement and who interacted with Ela and the other activists during that period, cut their political teeth, got their political education through that. So the first aspect about Ela that I want to touch upon, which others have also touched upon, and which you so dramatically, so visibly capture in your book, is her commitment to human rights, to democracy and democratic rights. And for the large part of her life up till 1994, even before and after that, when she became a member of parliament, she continued to be a champion for democratic rights and for human rights, espousing the Freedom Charter, which is based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Bill of Rights, espousing that through the Natal Indian Congress. The Natal Indian Congress, very briefly, is the oldest political organization in the African continent, going back to 1894, 1895, when Mahatma Gandhi came as a lawyer. And we tell many people in the outside world that India sent us Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the lawyer, and we in South Africa gave the world and to India the Mahatma. And so that is the legacy that Ela continued to espouse during the 1960s, right up to the 1994 period, and was a champion for human rights and democratic rights, an unceasing champion against all the repression. And at the Phoenix settlement, she faced the onslaught of the security branch, the police the army Caspers, etc., that you allude to and then you capture and went through all that period. And this is what we learned, many generations of activists learned to watching her facing up to those challenges that you talked about, were inspired by that and continued the struggle. The second aspect, of course, was this struggle for human rights and democratic rights was infused with the Gandhian philosophy, satyagraha, ahimsa, and all the Gandhian values of non-violence that she was, in a sense, the forebearer of from her grandfather and the succeeding Gandhian generations. And she continued to espouse that. And more importantly, she was able to fuse the Gandhian tradition and philosophy, and particularly the non-violent forms of democratic struggle, infuse that within the African perspective, South African's perspective for the anti-racial, anti-colonial struggles, and then became an inspiration, a global inspiration for all the anti-colonial, anti-imperialist struggles in Africa and of course in other parts of the world, and continued. So that was the second unique feature that we learned from Ela in our interactions during that period from the 1960s right up to the 1994 period. In the post-94 period, we then continued to interact with Ela, and we were inspired by her leadership as a member of parliament, not only in parliament, but also in the democratic South Africa, in the vision that she had for the South African Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and for women's rights in particular and children's rights in the post-democratic period. And we continued to be inspired. She was first a member of the Phoenix Community Center and then a patron and many, many other organizations. So the Gandhian values and the democratic values she continued to inspire in the post-94 period. And lastly, she's continued her work in the NGO sector as a developmental activist. So we pay tribute to all the three roles as a Democrat, as a Gandhi values and a principle for rights into social and human rights and the right for housing, for healthcare, for education, etc., etc. So very briefly, what we have been inspired with in South Africa, and I personally, in my interactions for 5 decades of interaction, this is the inspiration that she has been for us in South Africa, for many other people globally, and we're very inspired. And thank you for documenting that so lucidly in the book, and also for continuing to document all the other aspects that you've captured about our history. And a special thank you to Ela for being such an inspiring leader over the last 8 decades of her life and continuing to lead the world. The world is in a terrible state with global warming, wars throughout the world, etc. Racism, discrimination in the US, as you saw with your previous president, etc. And I think the book and the values that Ela has inspired and contributed toward the writing of the book will continue to be a landmark event for the next few decades and next few generations of activists and Democrats in the world. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share these few words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jinabai. I truly appreciate your words. And yes, you're right. When you think of all the things that this one individual has accomplished, it's outstanding. It's hard to fathom. And all the injustices she's personally suffered and rose above it. It's so impressive. But she hasn't stopped. When I spoke with her just last week, she said that we would pick this up later because she had to attend a Zoom conference on the events transpiring in Myanmar. When just last year, just before the border shut down due to COVID, she was in California at Stanford University speaking at the Gandhi King conference, that center that they have out there. So if you think that this is her history, I think her history is still beginning. I don't think she's ever going to stop. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to turn to the book itself, and just wanted to say that I could not have done this at all if it hadn't been for the assistance of Lynn Skapiak Harlan. Lynn was my editor. She is a writer, a poet. She has helped countless people get their works to publication. And then also Richie, who you may see on the screen right next to her, is my publisher and is responsible for handling all of this craziness with Amazon and everything that goes on in getting a book out. So I've asked Lynn just to talk to you very quickly about the book itself. And then I promise I'm going to do some readings for you from the book.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you especially to all of you who are here today. Of the hundreds of books I've edited, my time with Ela is one of my favorites. All life's work requires discipline, determination, precision of thought and action, and economy of effort. This is from chapter 12. Thank Susan for sharing Ela's words with me. And by doing so, she exemplified Ela's principle. Her discipline and determination with Richard Levine's expertise got this book to press. The life events Ela recounted touched me. They made me see how she lived the lessons her grandfather taught. Lessons still relevant today in our troubled world. Susan often called her humble, and I said, no, she's not humble, she's courageous. She may have a core of steel, as many of you have said. I hope my time with Ela finds its way into the hands of readers to learn from and to relish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And I appreciate all that you did, you and Richie, to bring this book to its current life on its own. We'll see where it goes. As I mentioned, I'm not a biographer, but I ended up writing this biography. And so instead of telling you more about the book, I thought that I would read some pieces from it. And I have a surprise for you. I have talked Ela into reading her words for us. So I'm going to read what Susan said. Susan said, she said, and Ela is going to read what she said. Read along. This first reading comes from chapter 5, page 40 and 41. And this, and a very young child. And so we have, that's the picture that I have in mind when I read this section. So this is a little Ela. This is on the Phoenix settlement. This is her brother, Arun, and this is Gandhi's house in the background, Sarvodaya. So Ela begins by asking me if I have any questions for her, because we had been to dinner at the Zulu restaurant at the end of the promenade, from the parking area on down, where there were many women selling their wares, and then on down to a little shopping type area. We were having dinner there at a Zulu restaurant, and we were walking back past all the sand sculptures and on our way to the car. And I had peppered her with questions throughout dinner. So she begins by inviting me to speak with her some more. Ela, you would start.
Do you have any other questions for me?
Ela asked. Well, yes, I do, I said. If you don't mind, I would love to hear more about the newspaper. My writer self wants to know more about the process.
Parents used to take me to the press every Thursday night when I was around 3.
Ela said.
They had 2 huge cane chairs, which they put together face to face and put a little pillow in between. I used to make a little cot when I got tired and sleep in that, and then they would bring me home.
What a sweet memory, I said. I can just picture you wiggling around on that cot. She smiled. Images of my son at 3 years of age popped into my head. We stopped for a moment to admire one of the sand sculptures.
Every Friday morning,
She said,
parcels of newspapers would be taken to the post office, and then all the letters of the alphabet would be returned to their individual slots in a huge wooden tray housing the alphabets.
this is where the concept of uppercase and lowercase came from, right? I said. Capital letters were in the upper trays or cases and regular letters in the lower case. Ela acknowledged my interruption with a gracious nod.
This was like a big typewriter where the people setting the types would be able to know exactly where each alphabet was housed. They would be able to set the types as they read the text, which would stand on a wooden stand similar to the piano score holder. Then the whole process would start anew. They would gather stories on little slips of paper, then organize the news, then set the types, and so it went on and on week after week.
She absent-mindedly pantomimed the action of moving around the letters with her graceful hands.
When I grew older, I had to address 900 to 1,000 little brown sheets by hand. We rolled the newspaper into these. The printing process from start to finish took the entire night. It was very time consuming.
Thank you, Ela. I was struck by the continuity of this. Ela started, Eva's grandfather, Mohandas, started the press through Sushila and year 2000. I believe now that this is all done electronically as with the rest of the world and is available on the Gandhi Development Trust website. So let's take a minute here and see if there is a question that we could ask. I think if we end, open it up, and I'll hang on as long as people want to, and Davinia will let us. But I see our time just zipping by. Davinia, is there a question that has been posed?
Perhaps if anybody has any questions, they can unmute their mics and put on their videos and ask their question directly. At the moment, I don't see any hands that have been raised.
Okay, well, maybe we'll move on to the second reading then and give people more time to think about what questions they might want to ask you, Ela, and ask me. So the second piece we're going to read is from chapter 16. It starts on page 139. This is one of my favorite stories that Ela told me because it comes from the time when she went to India and met her grandfather for the first time. And here's a picture of Ela with her grandfather. She was 7 at the time, and he was just this revered grandfather. He wasn't this to her. He wasn't this uh, amazing icon that the rest of us have come to know. So let me get my book here in front of me. Are you ready to start, Ela? I'll start if you're ready. Do you have your mic on?
Yes, I do.
Here we go. Gandhi returned to India before you were born, I said. Did you ever get a chance to see him face to face?
Oh my, yes.
She said.
As a child of 7, amidst the events surrounding partition and the independence of India, my parents and I visited Bapuji's ashram. When I went to the Sevagram ashram in India with my mom, it was the first time I met my grandfather. I was quite excited about the visit. My dad and brother also accompanied us, but I remember they had different living quarters. Soon after arriving, I found that the daily lunch menu comprised of boiled pumpkin, some curds of yogurt, roti, and homemade butter.
What is roti? I asked.
A flat bread made from stone ground wheat and water.
Ela said.
After eating this meal for a few days, at one of our regular meetings with my grandfather, I asked him why he had named the ashram Sevagram. He explains that Seva meant service and Gram meant a place or a land. And so this was a land of service. So it was named Sevagram. My quick response to that explanation was, you made a big mistake. You should have named this place Kolagram.
What does that mean? I said.
Kola means pumpkin. So I very boldly told him this should be called a land of pumpkins.
We laughed, heads thrown back, wide grins. I can just see it. 7-year-old Ela, chin jutted out, speaking her mind to the famous Mahatma Gandhi, the innocence of a child. Our laughter slowly subsided. She became serious again.
But he did not laugh at this.
Said Ela.
Instead, he asked, why do you say that? And I told him, I have never seen so many pumpkins as are seen here. We get them to eat every single day. He took this childish talk seriously, and in the prayer meeting that evening, he spoke about diet. He said living simply did not mean having no variety in the diet. He spoke at length about the need for variety and chided those who were serving pumpkins daily. This got me into trouble, as the team responsible for catering began to look for the person who had been carrying tales to Bapuji. But for me, the story revealed two things about him. First, how carefully he listened to our childish talk, and how many of us pay attention to our children when they talk about the million things that they may have been up to.
So you were a talkative child then, I said.
That's what they tell me.
She said.
Sita, my sister, said I was very talkative. And in one of the letters I received from Gandhiji, he asked me, if I was still as talkative as I had been when I was there.
This news surprises me, I said, because you are so calm and you speak so quietly. Thank you, Ela. This exchange is just classic. It shows, it sets up to me the Ela that will become. It's charming, it's inquisitive, and she speaks her mind, and she has done this from an early age. Anybody have a question you'd like to ask?
We have one hand raised by Shirin Antla.
Yes, I just wondered if his response to that conversation influenced you to speak up more, because if he had responded negatively, would that have affected you?
Yeah, I believe that it would have, because I think the very fact that he took this little childish talk so seriously, it affected my responses and the way I behave today. Because at 6 years, you are at a very impressionable age, and all those little relationships with your grandfather, with parents, and so on, have a great effect on children.
And Shireen, I think you had a question.
Well, I was just wondering what you had known about him before you met him that time. You said it was around partition, so it was around 1947, right?
Yes.
Soon before he died. But what had you known about him before? Do you
My
remember?
mom used to tell me stories. My mother used to tell me stories about him all the time. And well, because a 6-year-old is, you don't dwell on the serious political issues, but you dwell on the personal issues. And so I had this image of a very loving grandfather, and I saw his pictures, and I felt, he was so wonderful. And I just looked forward to seeing my grandfather. I mean, in South Africa, there were just my father, my mother, and us 3 children, my elder brother and my sister and myself. The close-knit family. We had many friends and many other people who were distant relatives in South Africa, but not a close family. So I really looked forward to seeing my grandfather. And I had that image of him as a loving old person. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And he was. And he was just that.
Thank you. I hate to look at the clock. It makes me very nervous. I'm just going to continue until Divinia shuts down the site on me, because I do want to get to this third reading. And on another topic that Ela and I explored extensively was all the danger that she was in during apartheid. Oh my goodness, I still struggle with some of the images that she shared with me, and I tried to express through the book. Bannings, house arrests, jailings, fires, all manners of atrocity were thrown at her, yet she stood up to the police and went on to lead her country by example, by hard work, and then ultimately in the parliament. I've chosen this next section because it shows how clever Ela was with her choice of words and her interactions with others in stressful situations. I call this the rude policeman story. And if you'd like to follow along in your book, it's page 178 and 179. And I'll start in chapter 20. During the time of emergency, oh, nope, I'm sorry, that's Ela's part. Ela, your turn.
Okay, so this was, when my husband and two others were arrested.
Yes.
Just a background. No, it was before they were arrested. They were in hiding. They
and their
so
lives
during
were and their lives were in peril. And their lives were in peril.
Yeah. So during the time of emergency, a number of people were arrested. House arrest was difficult for my children because they didn't get all the things other children enjoyed, like picnics and holidays. It was 15 years for my husband, and 8.5 years of house arrest occurred during his banning for me. During that period, because he was banned, it was unsafe for me to go out.
Please explain what you mean by a time of emergency, I said.
If the government chose to declare a state of emergency,
she said,
then they could impose stricter controls on those they felt were ungovernable. They used imprisonment, force, bannings, house arrests, and other acts of brutality. From the 50s to the beginning of the 90s, more than 2,000 people and organizations received banning orders. When you are banned, you are essentially a non-person.
Oh my stars, I said. So that's what was happening during the 1975 to the late 80s period?
Yes,
she said.
Along with two others, and before they went to the British Embassy, the special branch of the police came looking at my home for the three of them. The policeman said to me, "You are the main one, and I can't believe you don't know where they are. And if you don't tell me where they are, you're going to find your husband torn into little bits." My children were all awake at that time and heard. The kind of language he used was just horrible. There were lots of other people around who used to swear at them and tried to chase them off. But I told the police to come in to have a look. I said, "He's not here, and I have no idea where he is." The policeman came in and searched the balcony, but couldn't find my husband. He started getting very angry at me, thinking I was telling a lie. And so I told him, "Mr. Benjamin, let me ask you one question. Does your wife know where you are right now?"
I just, thank you, Ela. I just loved how she was able to take such a stressful situation and put it back on him. Does his wife know that he's out here harassing people? Where does she know where he is? How would she expect Ela to know where her husband was? That was just such a clever response. It shows her quick thinking and her humor, her sense of humor as well. I think what I'm going to do now is read off the winners of the book and the voucher. And then after that, we will just open it up to questions as long as Davinia allows us to be here. The first 5 prizes are going to be just copies of the book with my signature on it, and I will mail that to you wherever you are. These go to L. Naidu, Julie Edwards, Rebecca Burns, Ivan Niranjan, and I apologize up front if I slaughter this name, Natombi Fikale Mazibuko. And then the vouchers are for Zoom conference for anybody who is doing a book club reading and would like me to Zoom in while they're holding their book club and talking about this book. And these go to Jayashree Raman, Cynthia Pease, Dina Padayachi, Kirshni Danraj, and Junie LeBlanc. And I have your email addresses and I'll be contacting you. In closing, I just want to thank you all for attending. I have a few more things to say, but I'll hold them off until the end, probably while we're answering questions. Divinia, if you want to put up the email addresses, if you have a question and I haven't been able to answer it for you, you can email me. We also have a small website. And of course, we'll be putting up the Amazon link for you. So let's go ahead now. And if anyone has a question they'd like to ask about the book or of Ela, if she's willing. Any raised hands?
Can I say something?
Oh, absolutely. No. Absolutely.
I'd just like to thank you so much for this book and thank all the speakers who said so many wonderful things about me. My cousin, Dr. Jinabai, and Lavern. And I just want to say that, what I have experienced is just a little bit of the terrible experiences that people in South Africa have. Iceberg, actually. When you hear the stories of all the other people who have had their children, snatched from them, who have been actually assassinated by the hit squads during the emergencies and during those times. So those are really stories of horror and the terrible time that the country and the people in this country went through. So what I want to say is thank you so much for writing my story. But I think that we need to look at it in the context of the bigger story. And the bigger story is, it's a tremendous story of courage, people fighting for liberation in this country, and, of the values that people had during that time. Everyone was, prepared to give up their lives for the liberation of the country. They weren't looking at what can I get for myself from this. And I think that is a huge lesson if people could remember, and remember that even today, that, as we move on, that is the most important thing, what I can do for others rather than what the country or what others can do for me. So thank you, Susan, and thank you to everybody.
Thank you for allowing me to do this, Ela. I truly don't know how I got so lucky as to have this opportunity.
Thank you.
Do we have a
and thanks
question
to Lynn too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ela, It was a wonderful experience. Just reading your words was super, but getting to hear you speak them gave me chills. And I'm so happy that I got to know you and know about your country and the struggles and your courage. You are an example to me and to everyone. And I hope you realize that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
One of the things that I did my best to put into the book was the list of Ela's principles, and then a list, a whole chapter on how to protest, and a chapter on peace education, which I think are ongoing legacies from this book. And I hope that everyone has an opportunity to share that with people who are going through similar struggles. I know that it occurs everywhere. Some family members of mine who are Rwandan are here listening to this. They know the struggle. As you know, you're meeting just last week with the folks in Myanmar. It's ongoing. There is, all of us need to learn the lessons that you learned and apply them as graciously as you did. And I see, Uma, I think you raised your hand.
Yes, I would just like to say a few words because this is my aunt and I'm also a historian. So she's actually a subject of history, but she's also a family member. And I've told her many, many times, you really need to sit down and write your memoir. Now, this is one of the most difficult things for her to ever do because there's one letter in the entire alphabet that she has the greatest difficulties with, and that is the letter I. She did this, it's always, but as in the democratic we. And so I think, I read the whole book. I downloaded it on Kindle and I read it, over a couple of days. And I think, the book really takes off around page 169. And I think it's around there. It's because she starts talking then. And I think you did a really tremendous, a lot of time faithfully, so that's the effort. But I also want to thank Auntie Ela for having so much patience to answer questions like, what is a roti? And, she doesn't say anything. She just gives a description about her roti, so she had a lot of patience to answer questions about states of emergency and house arrests and, which, South Africans all know about. So she had immense patience through this. And I also think she opened up really nicely to you. I've read many of her interviews, and there's some on, the UKZN website, and people have interviewed her, but she doesn't really open up to people, and it's because she cannot talk about the I. But I think she did do this in this book. And so there were parts of the book that left me, really, really sad. So, I think, thank you for doing this. And I'm actually glad because she will never do a memoir. And in fact, from page 169 onwards, there is actually a delay in the I. And I think you did quite a good job in getting her to speak about really difficult subjects, which she hasn't been able to open up about. And so it's not been an easy life. What comes out is actually it was a difficult life. But she triumphs because she doesn't allow anything to get in her way.
Yes.
So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Her patience with me was was miraculous. Never once did she say, "Oh, Susan, not another question." I just kept expecting her to say enough at some point, and she never did. And I truly appreciate that she felt comfortable enough with me. But I will admit, at the start, it was like pulling teeth to get her to agree to even the thought of doing. It started off, I was just going to help her with an autobiography, and it ended up much, much more. And as I said, I'm truly, truly grateful and blessed for having had the experience. Thank you very much. I know that Zoom meeting, I'm sure that we've lost participants, and so I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. Samuels.
Thank you very much, Susan. This has been a wonderful hour for me, and the launch of this book represents the high point in many of the journeys in my life and my interactions. The first is that my family have known Ela and members of her family for many, many years, and seeing some of them here today has been wonderful. Ela's nephew, Satish Dupelia, was my teacher in high school, and we remember him today. He passed a few months ago, and he was a wonderful soul that represents some of the other journeys that reach a high point today. Are my relationship with people from Georgia State University, Dr. Susan Ogletree, Dr. Gwen Benson, Professor Julie Washington, Dr. and Mrs. Hayward Richardson, and of course the author that I have come to love over many, many years. But I think the journey that I want to highlight is a journey that I started with Ela 16 years ago, when I went to her apartment to nominate her to be the Chancellor of Durban University of Technology. I'd long admired the work of Ela, so I decided as a member of the Senate and the Council of the University to nominate her to the position of Chancellor of the University. And I remember how warmly I was received. It was an unscheduled visit, but I was invited in. I was offered a cup of tea and some snacks, and the warmth of her hospitality, I think, demonstrated the warmth with which she has lived her life. And it's a memory that has left an indelible mark on me. And I've been fortunate over the 16 years to continue to work with Ela on a number of projects. In non-COVID times, Ela is a regular visitor to my office, often meeting delegations, often interacting with them. And I've been fortunate to undertake 3 overseas visits with her, one to Atlanta, where we visited the King Center together and the Gandhi room within the King Center, where she placed a garland on the statue of the Mahatma. And of course, very special then was a day trip that we took to Alabama, where we visited the Voter Rights Museum in Alabama. And of course, the movie was released some years ago, and it brought back memories of Ela and I walking across that bridge together with Dr. Lafayette. It was a wonderful experience, and I remember how warmly Ela was received, including getting the freedom of Tuskegee. We had gone to the university in Tuskegee to thank them because they were one of the first universities that chose to partner with us at a time when we were a little technicon and not the ranked university we are today. And so those memories are really highlights in my life that I will remember. But I think our visit to Italy together probably demonstrates some of the features that we see in Ela come to life in your book. One of them was about walking through the streets of L'Aquila together, a little town just outside Rome. And the mayor of the town had invited us to the chambers of the city council where Ela spoke, and I accompanied her. And when we were leaving, we were actually offered a ride back to the hotel in the mayoral car. the mayor had made a mistake. He, instead of inviting our ambassador, the South African ambassador, the ambassador of India was invited to the event and introduced as our ambassador. But when we were leaving, and there was the mayoral car that was going to take both of us back to the hotel, the ambassador said that he does not share a car with anybody. So we said, that's fine, we're happy to walk. And of course, the ambassador got into the mayoral car and was about to leave. But as we walked down the street, throngs of people who had heard in the newspaper that Ela Gandhi was visiting came around us. And the car that the mayor had provided couldn't leave those gates because there were people in front of us. And I think many of them thought that I was Ela's bodyguard because they would ask me for permission whether they could take a photograph with her. So I was in many of those photographs as well as the bodyguard, allowing access to Ela. But I think on our departure from Italy, I saw Ela's true humility and humanity. Ela had received many, many gifts during that visit, including from the Cardinal of portrait all these gifts onto her bed. And she took the little button where she was given the freedom of the town of Assisi. And she said, this little button is all I'm going to take back with me because my granddaughter, I think, would like it. She had always what I would like. She then asked the people that served us in the hotel what they would like. And I remember a woman picking up a plate. It was a hand-painted plate that is very particular to that part of Italy. And she said, I've lived here for 50 years, but I've never been able to get a plate like this. And she was absolutely delighted to this and gave joy to many, many people, the gifts that she had received, including giving a huge portrait of her grandfather to the medical school in L'Aquila. And those memories are memories that I will never forget because they demonstrate the person that Ela is and how fortunate I have been. You capture the essence of it so beautifully in your book, Susan. I want to use this opportunity to thank the many people that have contributed to the book and the many people that have actually contributed to this event. It is truly special to have people from across the world come together to celebrate this event. So I want to end with this hope that may this book continue to shed light on a great heroine of democracy, social justice, and liberty. But even more importantly, to need that beacon of light in the world that we live in today. So it's with those words of hope and optimism that I close in this event. If there are final words from the author and Ela, I think we can certainly allow that.
Thank you so much, Lavern. Thank you. And I just don't know what to say.
Friends and colleagues, it's been a wonderful evening together.